Hello, my name is Jordan Andrews and welcome to my final project presentation. So getting right into it, a brief introduction of the client. So party one is the client or the buyer, and they are a motorcycle enthusiast who wants to buy a brand new MT-03s. And for this, it is a really great motorcycle to learn on, and you can get really great reviews, and a lot of buyers really like to buy this bike. So they're coming to Great Western. And party two is the seller or the salesman from Great Western, and they are also a motorcycle enthusiast, and they work for Great Western, the business, and they want to sell this bike not only to meet their quota, but to make money for themselves and the business, and to create a friendly relationship with the client. So a great summary of this negotiation scenario. So the parties involved with negotiating the motorcycle prices include the salesman, who is selling the bike, and then the buyer who's going to be buying the bike. And both of these people, very interested in motorcycles. As stated before, they're both enthusiasts, and they want to meet the quota, they want to have fun on the motorcycle. That's it. So the buyer, like I said, wants to have some fun, and the client wants to get out of there for a good price as well. So getting straight into it, the client's goals. So the client wants to buy this motorcycle for no more than $5,600 from the dealership. And the client wants to get out of the dealership the same day within that price range. So that money is definitely not negotiable to the client. That is what they want to get out of there for. And the client is going to put insurance on the motorcycle before leaving the dealership because it is one of their policies. And the client will be taking that bike home the same day, so there ain't going to be no delivery fees. So going right back into it, the salesman's goals. So the salesman wants to sell this motorcycle, create a good relationship with the client for future references, like buying new motorcycles or service meetings. And once they successfully sell this bike, they're going to meet their quota, and they are going to make more money. So the out-of-door price is $6,530.66, but it is negotiable, but not past $5,530.66. So the client is going to have to pay a registration fee, title fee, and taxes on the bike. There also is going to be, that insurance thing where they have to put insurance on it. The fees are negotiable, might I mention that. So the ZOPA. So the ZOPA is that zone of possible agreement. And so for the client, we can see those prices listed there. They want to pay no more than this $5,600. And then for the salesman, we can see there's listed here. So they have that low end, that the client also has that same low end, but they really want to try and get closer to this price. So we can see that median here. And boom, it is within the client's range. So some leverage points that the client has is knowing that market value and other places to acquire this bike, and within the price range that they want. But the client does want a new bike if they can get it. So being able to walk away, that's a pretty high leverage point. So with both parties being motorcycle lovers, that's also a leverage point, but it's for both parties. So we're going to see a lot of emotional intelligence used to find leverage points, especially in that negotiation process. So salesman's got a lot of leverage when using that emotional intelligence because he knows what motivates that buyer to want that motorcycle. So it's going to play in his favor pretty good. So let's go into that BATNA. So as you can see, that is their walkaway price. They will not pay, the buyer is not going to pay more than this number right here. And then the dealership is not going to go below this number right here. That is their bottom end. They are not going to go out of this. So if that negotiation fails, then the client is going to walk away. And if we reveal that BATNA too early, then not only is this going to be a possible negative outcome for the negotiation process, but we're also going to see that it could lead to a bad reputation and can lead to the buyer being overconfident. And in the end, they're probably not going to get out of there for the price range they want. They're probably not going to go home with a bike that day. So let's go into some guiding principles. So another principle that I really want to talk about is the market value of a motorcycle. So the market value for the MTs sell for around 5,000. So they really don't want to pay over 500 for, over market value. They just don't want to do that. So this is going to help them guide their way through the negotiation process and their understanding of the Zopa and the BATNA, because this is what really guides those two things. So another principle that is represented is the research on the motorcycle and knowing how it operates. So knowing exactly what this person is getting into, it's really going to help them understand what they want and how they can get what they want for the price and get out there and send it. So another guiding principle that's going to help them is knowing that out-of-door price. Knowing it is definitely going to help them be able to negotiate. Knowing that price is going to help them avoid those pop-up fees and anything that could come up later. So let's get into some negotiation techniques. One technique that they're going to use is starting off with a reasonable offer. So starting off with that low ball may not be the best idea. So it's probably best to kind of start off with something kind of like in the middle of your Zopa. And because both of them are lovers of motorcycles, they have that shared goal of buying motorcycles and riding them. So they understand how the motorcycle works and how each other work, basically. So they're going to have that good relationship. So another technique that they're going to use is being able to walk away. So this is going to be, like I said, that highest leverage point. So the client does not want to pay this price at all. So they want to be able to negotiate kind of around more of this price right here, because they want to have that bike, take it home the same day. So they want to meet those needs right there. So the seller wants to meet their quota. They want to sell a bike and be able to gain more reputation, power, money. That's what it is. So let's talk about bargaining. So the bargaining tactic that's going to be used the most is emotional intelligence. And with them being a motorcycle lover, doing the research, that's going to be a big leverage point right there already. So knowing what they're talking about, knowing that the seller also understands motorcycles, that right there is going to be your basis. So using emotional intelligence to create a good relationship between the two, that's really going to make it go super smooth, as we can see, and they're going to get that bike for pretty much what they want if they can really get in the seller's head, we'll say that. So another bargaining tactic that you're going to see is asking for that bottom line and out the door price, because knowing that can really help whenever it comes to walking away in the end. You need to know where you could buy another bike like that, or just knowing that bottom line can help you when ending that if it fails. So like I said, gives us that leverage point, no other options. So that's a really good bargaining technique. So let's get into a little skit here. So we're going to see a lot of real world examples, and this is definitely one of them. So we're going to see that a person goes into the dealership. They know that what their Zopa is. They know what price range they're looking for. So they're very familiar with this salesman. They've had friends before go through them. So they're going to shake his hand, which sets a boundary of respect. Super good way to really go into a negotiation. So they're going to sit down. The buyer is going to state what bike they want, and they're going to ask that out-of-door price. So after they give them that out-of-door price, we're going to see them, say it's really set, but they're also going to state everything you get with that price. It's just motivation for the buyer to buy it for that price, basically. So the buyer's going to say, they understand what the market value is. They understand that getting a tag from the tag office can cost $200 or so, and they saw that it costed a lot more, on that paper. So then they're going to state they can write a check for $5,500 right now. So they're giving them that reasonable offer, and they're going to say they could do it right now. The salesman is going to be like, that price isn't really negotiable, but as a motorcycle lover, they can definitely understand where they're coming from, and they like that they did their research and on the market value of these bikes. So they're already kind of setting that good relationship, but knowing that they can, negotiate. So that buyer is going to say, you know, I read into the manual, read on the website, they know that those fees are negotiable, and they'd like them waived. And they just don't pertain to buying the motorcycle, so they really shouldn't be there. Seller's going to say, well, I can probably waive those fees, but, you know, there are others you are going to have to pay, such as registration and title fee. The buyer is going to, you know, clap back. You know, I can have the bike on my insurance before I leave here, like the policy states, but I'd really like to take the bike, get the title and the registration done at the tag office myself. Is it doable? Notice how they didn't say, I'm going to do it by myself. They asked if it's doable. You know, they kind of gave that seller, like, you know, is it doable? That seller already knowing kind of that they know what they're talking about. So they're going to be like, there is an option to know, you know, to do that tag by yourself. They can offer the bike for you at this bottom end price right here. But they ain't going to take no less than that. So that is their bottom line. Well, the buyer's definitely going to do that. So they're going to call the insurance, they're going to get the check ready, and the seller's going to get the paperwork ready, and they're going to get them out of there within an hour or so because everything is already prepared. So as we can see, that's being taken care of. So about 3 weeks later, that buyer's going to come in and pick up everything they need. They're going to talk to that salesman, you know, set up that friend relationship, probably going to shake their hand again. So this is really the real world. Let me get back to the beginning here. This is really a real world scenario that we can see. And it really is a really good negotiation. Negotiating a motorcycle is something that happens every day. So thank you for listening to my presentation.